It started with the usual chaos of a house I hardly recognized anymore. I'd been sick, diagnosed with cancer about 6 months ago, and everything felt like a blur of appointments, medication, and trying to keep my head above water. My wife, Sarah, was supposed to be my rock. She said she'd be there, that she'd stand by me through everything. But I guess I was too busy fighting my own battles to notice the small cracks forming beneath the surface. The house was a mess, honestly. Clutter everywhere, clothes tossed aside, dishes piling up, half-empty coffee cups. I was dragging myself through the living room trying to do some basic cleaning one lazy Sunday afternoon when I stumbled onto something that made my stomach knot up and my palms turn cold. It was a stack of texts, hidden deep in her phone, left open on the sofa cushion. I didn't mean to snoop, but I was exhausted, and the phone was just sitting there, tempting me. What I saw made my world freeze. There in black and white were messages that made my skin crawl. Flirtatious talk, secret plans, carried out in the dead of night when I was asleep, hooked up to my IVs and medication. And worse, between her and my brother, my own blood, sharing words I never thought I'd see. I read her calling him babe, telling him she missed him, that she loved how he made her feel alive. I swear I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. My lungs squeezed tight and my stomach lurched. I froze, staring at the screen. My mind spun wildly, trying to process how I could have missed the signs, how I could have been so blind. The way she texted him late at night, the way she'd brush off my questions about her phone. I'd always felt a weird tension around her, like she was hiding something. But I brushed it off, told myself I was imagining things. Now I knew better. The shock was so intense I could barely breathe. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through her messages, trying to find more proof, more reasons to believe this was real. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was staring me right in the face. I clenched my fists, feeling the roughness of my nails digging into my palms. It was like my entire core was hollowing out. I stepped back, trying to steady myself, but it was no use. My mind kept replaying the words I just read. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. I'd fought my own body, all the pain and fear of cancer, and in the middle of that chaos she was sneaking around with my brother, no less. The thought made my stomach churn again. I felt a burning rage ignite in my chest, hot and bitter, as I realized this wasn't just a slip-up. It was deliberate. She planned this, hidden it, lied to my face. I had to get out of that house, had to clear my head. I couldn't stay there, not with all that betrayal hanging in the air. But I also knew I couldn't just walk away, not without doing something. I sat down hard on the couch, my mind racing, trying to figure out what to do next. How do you confront someone who's been lying right to your face? How do you even begin to process that the person you trusted most in the world was sleeping with your own brother? I looked at her side of the bed, still made, untouched, and the images of those texts kept flashing in my mind. I felt an icy numbness spread through me. I was shattered, but part of me already knew that this wasn't going to be a quiet, sad breakup. No, I needed something more. She had to pay for this. I didn't know what yet, but I knew I'd find a way. The house was silent now, except for the distant hum of the refrigerator. I clenched my jaw and my fists curled into tight balls on my lap. I wasn't going to let this slide, not without a fight. I needed to plan, to act while I still had the strength, because I wasn't just going to walk away from this. The betrayal was too deep and I had a score to settle. I looked at the phone again and a single thought took root. I'd find a way to get back at her, to make her see what she'd lost, what she'd thrown away. I didn't care if it made me a villain in this story. She'd crossed a line and I was done being the nice guy. I didn't want to live in this false peace anymore. She thought she'd hurt me the most. She had no idea what I was capable of. I was already planning my next move, one she'd never see coming. The next few days felt like walking through a fog of anger and disbelief. I stayed quiet around her, but inside everything was chaos. Every glance she threw my way, every word she spoke, felt like a dagger. My mind kept replaying the texts, and I couldn't shake the image of her lying next to him, whispering secrets that tore us apart. It was like I had a permanent knot in my stomach, and the more I tried to push it down, the tighter it got. I knew I couldn't confront her just yet. I had to be smart, plan my moves carefully. I started watching her more closely, her routines, her habits, every little shift in her behavior. She seemed nervous, maybe sensing that I'd found out. She'd avoid my eyes sometimes, and other times she'd act overly sweet like she was trying to hide something. I caught her sneaking her phone into her pocket when she thought I wasn't looking, and I could see the guilt flickering in her eyes. One night, while she was out of the house running some errands, I took the opportunity to search her phone again, this time with a purpose. I didn't want just the texts. I wanted proof, something irrefutable. I knew I had to get deeper. I needed her messages, her calls, her social media. I sat on the couch, a cold sweat prickling my skin as I slowly unlocked her device. The adrenaline was a rush, part fear, part hatred. I found what I was looking for pretty quickly. There were more messages. I'd missed some before, more flirtation, plans to meet up, even some explicit photos she'd sent him. The worst part, she had deleted some of them, but the ones I managed to recover were enough. I stared at her words, feeling a strange mixture of disgust and something darker, gratification that I had uncovered her deception, but also a simmering desire for revenge. I knew I couldn't just confront her with the evidence. That would be too direct, too obvious. No, I needed to be smarter. I wanted her to feel exposed, to catch her in her own lies. I started thinking about how I could turn this around on her. I also had to consider my brother. How do you tell a brother that his wife, someone he trusted, had been sleeping with his sister-in-law? That part was the toughest, but I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I had to act and act fast. I took a deep breath, feeling the familiar heat of anger rising in my chest. I had a plan forming, one that would hit her where it hurt. I wasn't the kind of guy who let betrayal slide. No, I wanted her to understand that she'd crossed a line and that I was capable of making her regret it. I started drafting messages, carefully crafted, non-confrontational but loaded with implications. I knew she'd try to deny everything, so I needed proof that she couldn't dismiss. I also started gathering evidence from other sources, secretly checking her social media, noting when she'd be alone, timing her movements. I wanted to be ready when the moment came. One thing was clear: I couldn't trust her anymore. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone else, someone who had lied and cheated and torn apart our family. I could feel the tension building in my shoulders, the way my jaw clenched whenever I thought about her with him. In my bed, in my life. The night I finally sat down with all my evidence, I knew it was time. I had everything I needed to confront her. But I also realized I wanted more, something that would make her realize just how badly she'd screwed up. I didn't want a simple fight. I wanted her to feel the sting of betrayal, to see the damage she'd caused. So I kept my plans close, waiting for the right moment. I knew I couldn't let her keep lying or pretending nothing was wrong. When I finally faced her, I wanted her to see that I was serious. Her lies had consequences, and I was ready to take back control of my life. I could feel the weight of it all pressing down on me, but I also felt strangely alive. For the first time in months, I was finally taking charge of my own story. The days that followed felt like a slow, deliberate countdown. I kept my actions discreet, knowing I needed to stay one step ahead of her. Every time she left the house, I quietly checked her phone again, searching for new messages, new lies. I wasn't just gathering evidence anymore. I was meticulously planning how I'd finally confront her. One evening, she was supposed to go out with some friends. I watched her leave, her purse swinging, her heels clicking on the floor. I stayed in, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. My hands were slick with sweat as I grabbed her phone, unlocking it one last time. I needed one more piece of the puzzle, something that would seal the deal. I found it in her email notifications, an encrypted message from her to him, scheduled to send the next day, detailing a meeting at a hotel. She told him she'd leave early and that she'd be waiting. It was the proof I needed, clear, undeniable. I stared at the screen, feeling the cold fury surge through my veins. That was the moment I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her walk out that door tomorrow without consequences. I spent the night mapping out my plan. I decided I'd confront her directly, but I'd have backup, a friend I trusted, someone who knew what I was planning. I wanted her to know that I wasn't bluffing. I was serious about making her pay. I also wanted her to see that I had the upper hand. The next morning, as I sat in the living room waiting for her to wake up, I felt a strange calm settle over me. I knew what I had to do. When she finally came downstairs, I looked her in the eyes, feeling every ounce of my anger boiling just beneath the surface. "Sarah," I said, voice steady but cold, "we need to talk. Now." She looked surprised, maybe nervous, her face went pale. She hesitated, then sat down across from me. "What's going on?" she asked, trying to sound innocent. I pulled out her phone, displaying the email and the scheduled message. "You think I didn't find out all those texts, the plans you made? How long has this been happening?" She stared at the screen, her face crumbling. "It's not what you think," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Oh, I think I know exactly what it is," I snapped. "You've been cheating on me with my own brother while I was sick. How long?" My hands clenched into fists. "Tell me now." Her eyes welled with tears. "It's not what it looks like. I was lonely and—" "Lonely?" I cut her off sharply. "You were sleeping with my brother while I was fighting cancer. Do you even hear yourself?" She broke down, sobbing. "Please, I didn't mean for it to go this far. It just happened and I—" Her voice trailed off. I felt my stomach twist, but I kept my voice even. "It stops now. I want you out of this house. Don't come back, and I'm calling your brother." Before I finished, she looked at me with pleading eyes. "Can't we just talk? Please, this isn't who I am." "No," I said, voice hardening. "What you did isn't who I am either, and I won't let this ruin everything I've fought for." I handed her a set of keys, telling her to leave and never come back. I wanted her gone. I knew I needed to make her feel the weight of her betrayal. That's when I called my friend, who was waiting nearby, someone to witness what was happening, someone I trusted. Within half an hour, she was packing her things. The house felt colder than ever, the silence deafening. I watched her go, her sobs echoing down the stairs. When she finally stepped outside, I handed her the last of her things, watching her drive away, feeling the sting of betrayal sharpened into pure fury. That day, I realized I'd crossed a line. I'd done everything I could, confronted her directly, exposed her lies, and made her leave. The family I thought I had was shattered beyond repair. Yet I felt a strange sense of relief. It was over, or at least that's what I told myself. What I learned from all this: trust is fragile. Once broken, there's no going back. And sometimes revenge isn't about violence or shouting. It's about walking away, making sure they understand that they've lost everything. I might have been blindsided, but I was finally free from her lies. And that was worth every bit of the pain. The house felt emptier than ever after she left. Silence invaded every corner where her voice used to be, where her footsteps once echoed through the halls. I sat on the couch that evening, feeling the weight of what I'd just done. Part of me was numb, another part, something darker, was exhilarated. I'd finally done it. I'd taken control back from her, from my brother, from the chaos that had been threatening to drown me. But even in that moment of supposed victory, my mind kept racing. I kept replaying everything, the lies, the betrayal, the shock that had turned my world upside down. I'd always thought I was a patient guy, someone who could handle a lot. Cancer, loneliness, heartbreak. But that night I realized there was a limit, and she'd crossed it. Still, I wondered, what now? What was left? I knew I'd have to face the fallout. My family, my brother, our friends, all of them would have opinions. Some might even blame me for blowing things up, but I didn't care. I'd stood for myself, for my dignity. That's what mattered. The next day I reached out to my brother. It wasn't easy, but I knew I had to talk to him, clear the air at least. I dialed his number, took a deep breath, and when he answered, I didn't hold back. "Listen, I need to say something," I started. "You and I have always been close, but what happened, what I found out, it's not just about us. It's about respect. That woman you married, she betrayed me and she betrayed our family." There was a long pause on the other end, then he finally spoke. "I didn't think it was that serious. I swear, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I screwed up." "I don't care if you screwed up," I shot back. "You crossed a line and I want you to know it's over. I'm done. Don't come near me or my house again." He sighed heavily. "Look, I'm sorry. I really am. I never wanted to hurt you, but I guess I was just so lonely too." "Lonely?" I echoed, voice rising. "You're supposed to be my brother. How could you do this? While I was sick, while I was fighting for my life." He mumbled something about guilt and regret, but I cut him off. "Guilt doesn't fix what you've done. I need space. I need time to heal, if I can even do that anymore after all this." Hanging up, I felt a strange mixture of relief and devastation. I'd cut ties with my brother, the one person I thought I could trust after everything. The betrayal cut deep, but I also knew it was necessary. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. In the following days, I started to clean out the house, removing her belongings, shutting down the part of my life that had been poisoned. It was a slow process, each item pulling at the memories, each moment a reminder of how completely I'd been blindsided. I threw away clothes, pictures, gifts, every piece that linked her to my life. It hurt more than I expected, but I didn't do it out of spite. This was about reclaiming my space, my dignity. I also started leaning on friends, people who knew what I'd been through, who understood the pain of betrayal. Their support was crucial, but honestly, I knew that the main work was on me. I had to rebuild the trust I'd lost, not just with others, but in myself. How could I ever trust again after something like this? That question haunted me. As I sat alone in what used to be our living room, I realized something. I'd been so focused on revenge, on exposing her, that I'd forgotten one crucial thing. I had to find a way to move forward. Not just revenge, but healing. And that was going to be a long road. I made a promise to myself that day. I would learn from this. I'd become stronger, wiser. And I'd never let someone betray me like that again. I'd rebuild not just my house, but my life. It was a hard lesson, but maybe, I told myself, it was one I needed to learn. Because if I kept dwelling on the past, I'd never get to the part where I finally started living again. The weeks that followed felt like I was walking through a fog of raw emotion and quiet determination. I kept busy trying to piece my life back together. The house was almost empty now. Her belongings gone, the memories faded into just shadows. I spent a lot of time reflecting about trust, betrayal, and what I really wanted from life after such a blow. I knew I wasn't the same person anymore, but I also knew I had to keep moving forward. One night I sat outside on the porch, a cigarette in hand, staring at the stars. The cool air was a relief after the chaos inside my head. I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I was finally free from her lies, but the weight of everything still pressed down on me. I had to choose what to do next, whether to let this consume me or turn it into something I could learn from. Suddenly, I realized that I'd been so caught up in revenge and heartbreak, I'd forgotten one thing: myself. I'd spent so much time trying to expose her, punish her, that I hadn't thought about what I wanted going forward. That night, I made a decision. I was going to take the lessons I'd learned and rebuild my life, better, stronger, wiser. The next day, I started to focus on myself. I signed up for counseling not because I was weak, but because I knew I needed help processing everything. I reached out to old friends I'd drifted from during my illness. I even started walking again, reconnecting with nature, feeling the sun on my face, the wind in my hair. It was small, but it was a start. Meanwhile, the fallout from my confrontation with her continued to ripple out. I heard from some family members that she was trying to spin her side, saying I was overreacting, that I was just bitter. I didn't care. Their opinions didn't matter anymore. The truth was out, and that was enough. My focus was on healing, not on the noise around me. One afternoon, I received an unexpected call from my brother. I hesitated before picking up, but I knew I had to hear him out. When he did, his voice was remorseful. "I screwed up badly," he admitted. "I never wanted to hurt you, but I was weak. I'm sorry." I paused, feeling a strange mixture of anger and relief. "It's going to take time," I said carefully. "But I think we both need to figure out what's next. Right now, I just need space. I hope you understand." "I do," he replied. "And I respect that. I hope someday we can rebuild, but not yet. I messed everything up. I'll give you the time you need." That conversation was a small step. I knew I couldn't erase what had happened overnight. Trust was shattered, and it might take years to rebuild. But at least I'd taken the first step of reclaiming some control over my life. In the meantime, I focused on setting boundaries with everyone around me. I told myself I deserved peace, that my health and my well-being came first. I started dedicating time to activities I'd neglected: reading, exercising, even trying to pursue some old hobbies. It felt awkward at first, like I was starting from scratch, but each small victory meant a lot. Ultimately, I realized that revenge, while satisfying in the moment, wasn't what healed me. The real strength came from choosing to move on, to refuse to let her betrayal define me. I couldn't undo what happened, but I could control how I responded. I was determined to rebuild, to find happiness again, on my own terms. And I knew that no matter how deep the hurt, healing was possible if I stayed true to myself. I'd like to say that the hardest part was confronting her or dealing with the fallout from my brother. Honestly, the toughest part was finding my footing again afterward, reclaiming my sense of self after everything that had been shattered. I remember walking into the house one evening, the quiet so loud it was deafening, and realizing how much I'd changed. It wasn't just about revenge or betrayal anymore. It was about me rebuilding from the inside out. That day, I went out and bought a new set of keys, not just for the house but for my life. I handed over the old ones to her, symbolically closing that chapter. Watching her drive away, I felt a strange calm wash over me, like I'd finally taken control of the story I'd let slip out of my hands for far too long. It was a small act, but one packed with meaning. I sat on the porch, sipping cold water, feeling the cool night air settle around me. I thought about everything, the pain, the anger, the betrayal, and I realized I'd made it through. Not unscathed, but stronger. I learned that sometimes you have to destroy what's broken to build something better from the ashes. Looking back, I understand now that the real revenge was in my resilience. I had every reason to fall apart, to lash out, or drown in despair. But instead, I chose to stand up. I refused to let her or anyone else define my worth. I refused to carry that weight anymore. So here's what I want to leave you with. If you're ever in a situation like this, remember, you can't control what others do, but you can control how you respond. You're stronger than you think. Betrayal hurts, yes, but it also reveals who you really are. And if you choose to rise from the wreckage, you'll find that healing, while slow, is absolutely possible. Take your pain, your anger, your heartbreak, use it as fuel. Don't let it consume you. Instead, let it push you forward. Because at the end of the day, your life isn't defined by someone else's lies or betrayal. It's about what you do next. And I promise you that next step, no matter how hard, will be worth it.